This bro on YouTube named Lumos has solidified himself as one of the worst educators in the history of social media after he admitted freely that he intentionally tricks people with social disabilities and autism into viewing, to donating, and supporting his channel. And I yelled at him for this, and somehow this guy is still on YouTube. I'm pretty sure that donation fraud isn't allowed on YouTube, and freely admitting that you're purposely tricking people with misinformation while accepting donations and running ads is quite literally against YouTube policy. How the hell is this guy even still on YouTube? It's amazing to me, and how anyone could ever hire this person in the real world is a true mystery. If you want to see the entire debate that we had, where he cut off and ran away before I could even submit any evidence in my case, watch this link here, and you can see in this video that I blast him for admitting that he tricks people with social disabilities for views. How the hell can anyone talk about superheroes all day long and also do this too? Well, this plethora of misinformation enjoys lying to others about comics. Case in point, his newest video, where he claims that this location called the Void in Lucifer 2000 comic series is the same location as the Overvoid in Final Crisis' series from the year 2009. To him, any void is the same, despite the comics and authors saying otherwise. This bro doesn't care, and his support team is composed of people who censor all the mythology in the comics from view because bro thinks it's still 2019 and doesn't realize that the world reread all these older series over and over and over in the COVID era, and hardly anyone supports lying anymore in the scaling community. Here's why Lumos is lying to you and not telling the truth. I mean, outside of him admitting that cultivating a community of people who have social disabilities and lying to them for profit, here is why he's also wrong on the comic book information part 2. In Lucifer 2000, God's son, Samael, the devil, wants to leave his father's creation and ends up slicing into the void, a place that contains creations and the space between them. All well and good and all until 2009's Final Crisis comes out and shows us the Overvoid, another void location, and low forehead educators believe this is the same location from the Lucifer series only because it's colored white on the comic page. No other reason. Here's Lucifer explaining to you in the series that the void is not non-existence, as one of the lesser gods wants out and wants to die by removing itself from existence. She thinks jumping into the void will cancel out her existence, but Lucifer tells her that the void is not a void of nothing, that it's not non-being, and it's not non-existence. However, the Overvoid in 2009's Final Crisis is non-existence, repeatedly cited as such over and over and over and over in the guidebooks by the author and directly in the comics too. So this is a lie that some fools tell others because they want to downplay the ultimate void of the Overvoid, which is the exterior void, and try to dwindle down the scaling to be the same as the Lucifer Void, which is the interior void and its polar opposite location. More so, in the 2018 Lucifer series, Lucifer has the same idea as that one lesser deity and wants to remove himself from existence by jumping into the ultimate exterior void of non-existence, and to do so, he has to remove himself from the Book of Destiny. He ends up succeeding at this, and they find out that the devil and God are a duality and require the other to define themselves. So while Lucifer is hurled into non-existence, the presence, God too is automatically forced out. The Lucifer 2000 Void is a place that contains creations and is set up for mortals, gods, and physical things to exist within freely and normally in whatever state they normally exist in. Traveling a bit into that void, you come across infinitely more creations made by other creators, as Lucifer discovers. The Overvoid is the complete opposite. It's non-existence. There are no other creations in it. No space, no concepts of time, no concepts at all. It's absolute nothing, and even Lucifer himself and the presence could not exist inside of non-existence. But Lumos loves to lie and knows that drama is the only way he can get views, so I'll give him whatever he needs, since he can't feed off of anyone else's bottle but mine, it seems. Lumos ignores all of the comics, all the guides, and doesn't care what the facts are. His community is entirely people who censor comic book information and spread disinformation because they have bias. Beyond that, he calls the old 1990s Spectre Void the Overvoid, as well as fully ignoring this shot, the most famous shot from this comic book, saying its name is the Sea of Eternity, which is the other name of the Garbodaka Void. This is the same void in the Lucifer 2000 run, which calls itself the Garbodaka, and we have interviews that exist from the author's favorite writer, whose niece did this interview on British radio calling the void the Sea of Eternity, and this statement was lifted from that famous BBC radio interview and placed into the Lucifer 2000 text. The Garbodaka is the Lucifer 2000 void, the internal central void, and its other name is the Sea of Eternity. Lumos ignored this for years, despite me making tons of video on it, and despite him knowing this, over and over and over and over, he continues to lie, so he's just rage baiting and lying on purpose for views. He's a grown man, by the way. During the 2018 Metal series and the Death Metal series, we learn of a place called the Greater Omniverse, and Lumos is stuck on this idea that the Greater Omniverse is the Overvoid from 2009's Final Crisis, and it's the same location as the Lucifer 2000 Void. None of that is true, of course, because the comics quite literally explain that the Greater Omniverse is the other name of the lost Crisis on Infinite Earths multiverse that the original Anti-Monitor ate back in the 1980s comic series called Crisis on Infinite Earths. We also get shots of Batman explaining that he found a higher version of Hypertime outside of the current multiverse, beyond the local Omniverse, and we get the author interviews themselves saying that it was a secret, that the Greater Omniverse was just the old multiverse, hiding the new one inside of it. The Flash runs into this Greater Omniverse, which Lumos thinks is the true Overvoid, but the Flash runs into the old Anti-Monitor, who was pillaging the exterior multiverse for ages. He hasn't seen the Flash in decades. So this Anti-Monitor was entirely outside of the Perpetua multiverse, inside of the exterior multiverse. It's a multiverse inside of a multiverse. The inner, the Perpetual multiverse. The exterior, the old Crisis on Infinite Earths multiverse. We know this for sure because Lumos never read Dark Crisis, The Dark Army, a tie-in to the finale of Dark Crisis 7, which shows us that the Perpetual multiverse is totally separate from the Orrery of Worlds, and both are inside of a higher version of Bleed Space. These are two separate multiverses. The Dark Army is trying to get into the Orrery of Worlds multiverse and fails. The Orrery then gives Dr. Light access to the Orrery and gives her new powers to go kill the Great Darkness. This is also something that Lumos and his crew lie about and won't even talk about out of raw fear of others discovering that they censored this from everyone for years. So Dr. Light takes her Orrery gifted powers and defeats the Great Darkness with it. What fans are not understanding is that the DC KO series has already explained that the Perpetua multiverse is a brand new multiverse with its own unique history, and the old multiverse that we used to read in DC for the last 80 years was the Orrery of Worlds, which is now separate and locked out. All the characters and events from the Metal series and onward take place in a brand new multiverse with its own unique history. Even Scott Snyder agrees, Superman punching a brand new multiverse up there in that famous World Forger punch and not the sixth dimension. These multiverses are shown to exist in Bleed Space in a larger and higher form of Hypertime, as Batman discovers. Within the Perpetua multiverse are lower copies of Bleed Space and Hypertime that were made by the Forger Monitor. However, outside, that's a different story, as it's the Forger Monitor himself that states that Darkseid seeded Earth Zero with the Omega energy when it was first made, meaning Darkseid made Earth Zero, the core of the entire multiverse that Dr. Manhattan explained was the origin point for the entire continuum, and changing that origin point caused the birth of the Dark Multiverse. Earth Zero was first, which is why Alpheus and the Forger Monitor didn't know where Earth Zero came from or why it was there, but now we know, because Darkseid made it when the multiverse was first created, because he made the multiverse. The Perpetual multiverse is not the same multiverse as the Orrery. They're two separate places. The guidebook even confirms this. The authors explained it, and now the comic books have just recently recited it too. It's just that some biased autism-tricking personalities on YouTube can't be caught telling the truth because it would ruin what little community they have left.